Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side podcast. Today I'm here with Drew Cummins, who is the owner of ScreenLand Creative, which is an amazing theatrical marketing agency. And we're so happy to have him here today. Great to be with you, Drew.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into your story a little bit and see how you got here today. What kind of got you into this particular space?
I mean, way back in 2000, I was thinking I was going to be an architect, and then I found editing, and then became an assistant editor because I knew how to make computers work. So, and then it's been just a crazy road of different shops, both agency side. Most of my career has been agency side, as an assistant editor to an editor to a producer, creative director, and then kind of started running more of the running of shops and producing and kind of more of the leadership role. I was also at Universal as a client side for a while, and then was back on agency side. And during COVID, a very opportunity came up to take ScreenLand basically out of the BLT world, where we kind of were set up shop kind of independently. We weren't 100%. We were two different companies, BLT AV versus BLT. But due to the changes in the industry and due to COVID and due to just kind of some overall changes between BLT and BLT AV, the team that we had for the last 5 years before that, we were able to just kind of spin off into ScreenLand without any changes to the clients. It was still the same core team, and besides the headache of the name change itself, both with clients and with the IRS and billing departments at studios, other than that, it was truly kind of seamless in that way, and really kind of set us up for success until the strikes hit. And then, and then the fun of the strikes that we all know about. But now it's back up and running, and we never shut down, but basically the industry's hopefully back up and running and hopefully avoiding any other strikes. So.
Totally. I'm hopeful that the scale is leveling out and getting better. Interesting how you started out as an assistant editor and kind of worked your way up to being an agency owner. I guess maybe you can walk me through a little bit how you got from step to step here, because I know that, I talk to a lot of people in this industry all the time, and I think a lot of times somebody who's like an assistant editor might kind of feel like, how do I get there? Like, how do I become an agency owner? What were some of the things that sort of maybe that you did that that you felt stood out that sort of, kept your growth in this industry?
I think one of the key components, and it's what I think makes great creatives, and I think it makes great, just kind of anyone, is just kind of problem solving. It was from the outset as an assistant editor, it was kind of problem solving, working hard to figure out whatever that problem was that we were working on. I think that really helped me solidify my place inside of a really small company at the time, being willing and being kind of very proactive to jump into situations and try to take things off of other people's plates to free them up to do whatever their job above me was. And, and I think from kind of a mentor, one of my first employers on more the post side of things, it wasn't trailer, but it was post, and it was setting up avids and helping people kind of basically do assistant work. So, but when I was looking at which agency to go to as an assistant, as he closed up, he was like, well, a smaller shop will give you more opportunities to wear more hats and to do more. And I think that was a real key piece of advice, going to a tiny shop back in the day called Flash Frame. Shout out to David Freeman and Brad Savage. Really, really great run. We had a great time. And yeah, I think it was just about, finding those ways to really kind of solve the problems that made it easy to keep me employed and really help. But also I think it was just about hustle and the want to do and go the extra mile. As I was an assistant, I was cutting on the side, trying stuff, doing side projects for people, um, like small indie projects, just again, anything to cut my teeth and to really get in there. I know the industry's definitely changed in a lot of ways, but I still think that's more work ethic and problem solving. And I kind of looked at my biggest problem was I needed to make more money. So it was okay, assistant editor made me more money than I was making before. And then when I was an assistant editor, I was like, I was hearing what the editors were making, and it was okay, how do I get there? And how do I do this? How do I learn this storytelling? And it was just digging through the timelines of the editors, kind of just really immersing myself into that. And, it kind of reminds me talking to Chad Miller, AV Squad, and him saying like he would just like study trailers and just watch and watch and watch. And, being an assistant editor really is an opportunity to do that as well. So, and then from there it was kind of a similar thing. It was different at that point. Once I became an editor, it was more about kind of finding the shop that was the right fit, but also knowing what my strengths and what I was really liking were. I feel and good editor, and I have some good stuff on my reel, and I still get in there to rough stuff out. But for the most part, I also really liked solving the problem. Like if the copy didn't work, I would always rewrite the copy, and like Jason Chappelle would always give me shit for like every time I give you a copy, you totally change it, but then the spot works. So what am I gonna do? And that was at Buddha when I was still cutting, and so yeah, I just like to really solve the problems and find these things, and so that kind of started gravitating more into kind of producing. And at Buddha, they gave me a couple opportunities to oversee some stuff. I think it was just people were busy, and it was kind of like Drew seems like he can talk to some of the younger guys working on this campaign, and so that was kind of cool. And then I had a great opportunity when Jackson went over to Overture, and my good friend Todd Phillips moved up at InSync. He brought me in as an editor slash kind of creative director, and that really started my first chops of really producing. And again, it's like I just kind of felt like I gravitated a little bit more towards that. Like I really liked the creative, but I liked producing and writing and breaking down the movie and figuring it out and working with the different editors and like, oh, that's really great. We had this other thing a while ago. What if we do this? And what if we do that? And then from there, it was just like, I knew I really liked that side of it, and a great opportunity at Universal came up, and it was just about, I think it was, staying in touch with all the people that I worked with before and making good relationships at every shop I was at, and really trying to, those friendships that were built. The reason I got into Universal, I obviously had to interview and meet with Maria and Jackson and everybody, but it was also great friend Matthew Tollers, music supervisor at uni, hit me up one day and was like, hey, there's a job. Like, you should at least try for it. And so it was just that next, like, okay, it was having, the guts to, I think, go after stuff that was a little bit above my pay grade at the time. And then once I was there, figuring it out. And, I had never been an executive before at Universal, and it was kind of a nice way where it was like, you come in as a producer, but now it was way more responsibility running that whole shop. And it was after this really chaotic point. And I think I kind of had a weird thing where it was like after Universal, I went in there and kind of rebuilt it and kind of fixed a lot of things that were broken. And then now, a lot of that core team is still there. I ran into them at lunch a few days ago, and it was just like, hey guys. So, and they've been able to build upon that, and it's been, really successful, and they're doing great. And so then I was kind of recognized as like kind of being able to kind of go in and kind of fix things again. And I think that goes to that problem solving idea. And so as I had gone to the ant farm to help them rebuild. And then it was over 4th of July in 2018. And then 7 days later, BBDO shut it down. So I literally had gone into the office, I think 2 days, and they shut it down. So it was the weirdest job experience I'd ever had. So
That is
um,
weird.
it was crazy. And so then after that, there was a lot of soul searching, and I ended up back at BLT. I had been there 2004 to 2007 ish as an editor, and came back with the same idea. Like my mind was kind of like, oh, I'm going to the ant farm to really help them rebuild this. And then BLT was kind of in the same situation with their AV group. And, I had roots there. I had a lot of friends that had kind of gone through there. They kept having a lot of talent, real great talent come through there and then leave. And it was just, I could kind of sense what the issues were even before. And so I took it, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And, it was first year in, we kind of started fixing some of the broken pieces, getting some people in going. And then the pandemic struck right when we started. We had Onward come out. We were working on Onward for Jackson and Avi, and shut down. The theater shut down on basically opening weekend or the weekend before. And we'd had success a month before that with like Jumanji, the second Jumanji sequel coming out, and with Nick at Sony. And so yeah, we were like, oh, now we're back in theatrical. Here we go. And then boom, pandemic hit, and it was again, okay, it's another problem. How do we switch from theatrical, and we were doing a lot of Broadway work. How do we go from these two things that are just shut? How do we get into streaming and social and digital? And so, I think to answer your question in the most long-winded way, I think that, work ethic and problem solving are kind of what I would say I've heard said about myself, and what I kind of really gravitate towards. And I can kind of see why it works, because it's like, okay, how do we just break this down? Whatever it is, if it's like a trailer is a problem. It's like, how do we break this movie down? How do we, every movie, every show, everything has like its advantages and disadvantages, and how do we just riddle this thing into all advantages? So
It sounds like, you know, it's sort of like you were destined for this position, because from hearing from you, it's like you have like a unique technical mind and creative mind, leadership skills, and you've had the journey from sort of working on both sides, the agency side and the studio side, and you've worked the lowest, lower level positions all the way to the top. So you've seen, I'm sure you can relate to everybody at every different level in the agency, and yeah, it just seems like it was cosmic that you're going to end up in the seat that you're in now.
yeah, I mean, I couldn't, go back, to a scrappy youth and and rocky starts. No idea that I would have ended up here. No idea that I would have even ended up in trailers. It really was kind of moving back to LA and just ending up, in the right spot, right time to hear these things and be like, what is this world? I think nowadays the trailer world is definitely a little bit more known and a little bit more out there, but yeah, having gone through all the sides of it and had success and had failure, I've, even as a kid on sports teams, it was always like kind of more of a leadership, like, oh, okay, it's like captain of this, or, it just kind of always felt like I did like doing that, but with, I feel like I've been able to at uni and here at ScreenLand, just really have great people around and really enjoy that. I mean, I think that was one of the things that I really liked about working at the smaller shops initially, and even then growing to bigger shops and then at uni, was it's great people. I love the AV side because it's a bunch of kind of weirdos coming in from all different angles. And it's like a lot of people from bands. Like, I mean, I see all your music stuff behind you.
One
And
of
it's
those
like, I
weird
think,
people. Yeah.
no, and it's like in music and art school and film school, but also people like me that like I was going to architecture school and didn't really know, but I knew I loved movies. Music was a huge part of my life. I wasn't in bands, but I was always like adjacent to. And so music was such a huge thing. And then to be able to like find this thing and have the music that I was into, then kind of be able to use it or be able to just use like, oh, I have this like timing thing that I understand. It was like the first time where I was like, oh, I kind of understand this. Like it's just been built into me from a kid just listening to so much music and so yeah, so I think it was a very weird way of like we all get here, but having that those differences and having such a great crew of people trying to solve these problems and coming at it in a way of like helping each other. I feel like I've been able to make very lasting relationships that, is really great. I mean, I think that that's kind of key in a very small industry is being able to have those relationships and, working with teams. We employ an editor now that, was at BLTAV when I started, and she was my assistant when I was an editor, and now she's a kick-ass editor, and she's been for years. But being able to bring her back over here, back into the fold of our crew, has been amazing, and it's just part of that culture and just kind of just a great feeling, which I think that it's a very stressful job on all sides. And so to be able to have it be a good team and a good crew of people is really key. And I think that that's where, everybody fits into different shops differently. And I think that some people, one person can succeed and really feel great one place and not feel perfect at another. And so people move around and they kind of find that vibe that really works. And so it's cool. I mean, I really like it, and I am very grateful that we I got to this place and it did work out because it was, who knows if COVID didn't happen, then like this opportunity with my partners and being able to buy them out doesn't happen, or it happens way further down the line and maybe something else happens in this and that. I mean, some of it is just kind of who knows? It's just what happens. But
Yeah. What was sort of, when you became ScreenLand Creative just on your own, what was sort of going through your mind when you got that opportunity? Obviously you had previous relationships, you've done this before, it wasn't like your first rodeo, but were you a little bit nervous about it what was going through your mind?
I mean, I'm still nervous. It's like every day I'm just like it's just constant panic. But but I think, it's a huge shout out to our crew because like I don't know I would have been if somebody came up to me on the street and said, "Do you want to start a shop?" and it was starting from complete scratch, it would have been a different story than what we did. We were able to take, you know, BLT Print and BLT AV were already two separate companies, and so I was already a partner at BLT AV, and so taking that, and it was an existing company with a fantastic crew, and my partners, you know, weren't really involved. So it was truly, as the AV side had already, talked about and joked about, and they had, you know, based on some decisions that had been made on the bigger side, it was like, why don't we just go out on our own, this and that? And it was like, oh, well, there's money and this and that. But truly, the one thing I didn't worry about was the team. And that was such a huge relief because, Aura, Bill, Adam, Jeremy, Lauren, Steve, it's like everybody we had, Christine, Peter, it's like we just had everything ready to go. It was really just like meeting with them and saying like, I'm making this decision, but I can't do it without you guys. And it's a big risk. there's a lot of money involved, and, it will be a name change. And so we'll have to go after the clients and do all of this. But it was pretty, it was pretty seamless in how it happened, because we were able to transition from BLTAV into ScreenLand kind of in a slow way, and kind of let it happen. And I think there's still a lot of PR work that I need to do and get out there for meetings that I'm, too busy in the Bay doing the creative on, but we're also growing so that I can have more time to do that. And but yeah, I think that the nervous things for me were just like keeping the clients happy and not having any bumps happen, and that meant keeping my team happy and making sure that, like, shit that I'd never dealt with before, like making sure the health insurance and the 401ks transition properly. And, big shout out to my CFO Dave and Diane at BLT and Christine here. Like, everything happened, and it's like it took a lot of work, and it was just like, but it also, for me, it was exciting because it was yet a new challenge, a new thing to unlock, just a new problem to solve. And so we were able to kind of go at it that way. And we had our great Hulu clients still jamming with us. And ever since, we've been expanding back into, now that the theaters are open, expanding back into theatrical. And we've been doing a lot of that now. And so, again, it's always been this like, okay, when one thing changes, we got to figure it out and get that next thing. And so we've been very nimble. And I think being small has been very key to that. It's like, I know for my sanity and my health and the company's growth, for efficiency, we need to grow. So there is more support, and we are bringing in some really talented people as a layer of, producing help and other things, so that there's more time to go after more work, make sure that the shop is running right and everybody's happy and nobody's going to keel over and have a heart attack as they're working too hard.
Do you have a favorite campaign that you've worked on?
I will say the one, I mean, it's
probably a lot.
I mean, I've worked, it's like so many, like back early on in the days of like me as an editor, like, and at a small company, we had the chance to work on a ton of just super comedies in a row, Anchorman, Old School, and it was all with David Samuth, and they were just so fun to work on as an editor. I mean, it was just like endless jokes, and it was so much fun. And then like Tropic Thunder when I was at Buddha, it's, as an editor, they were always this like, oh, okay, solving these problems, this and that. There was one with Jackson. I can't even remember what the movie was called. I just remember it as Old People Walking in London. It was Dustin Hoffman as like a bad dad, like going to a wedding of his daughter in England. And I was able to use a music cue in the back end that was very much like cool kid music, hipster song in the back end. And Jackson was just like, yes, this is great. And it was like, that was really cool. Having the campaigns where you really kind of solve that problem. And again, it's like, oh, you've solved it. And it's like, oh, this now works. But recently for us, it was really great, getting back into theatrical and Onward and Jumanji. Those were super fun. But like recently, it's like the team, I think it's like at every level, it's different. Like as an AE, I remember having stuff that was a thing, and as an editor, and then as a producer. And then now it's really like seeing kind of how the team coalesced and how they operated and how they got stuff done, and we're able to manage. We're a small shop, but we work on both like very small to very big stuff. And like Bad Boys 4, like that was huge. And the team, it was, some days it was like every editor cranking, it was just like 6 people just editing, 2 producers, myself, graphics, everybody just going, while also having the Bear, Commandant Shadow. It's like we really went through this like crazy push earlier this year, and with, and the Bear was to work on the Bear. I mean, just to work on the Bear. That's it. It's like Thank you, Paul Rollins. Thank you, Amy. Like, to work on the Bear, amazing. But for me as a producer, as a company owner, I'm like, holy shit, so prestigious, so cool. As a producer, it was the first time that I'd sat in a bay with an editor basically every day, weekends, weeks, for like a month. Because it was like when we finally got the dailies to when the trailer was due was basically a month and a half. And we just cranked and we worked and we worked and we worked. And it was so much fun to be kind of old school making a trailer, just sitting in the bay, like jumping in, looking at something, hearing something from the other room and being like, that's great. Because this is the first time we've been back in the office. You know, we now have a physical office and about half the team is coming in uh, most days. So we've got about 8 people in the shop and it's just so cool over the last few months. That's changing. But, but yeah, I mean, certain times there is a little bit of like, I truly love AV Squad, but they are a bunch of badasses. And so like when we win, like we had a campaign and we won, it was just like, yes. But again, and because I know who we're up against and I know
Yeah.
how good they are, like it truly is like that gives me the confidence to keep going and to keep pushing on those. As an agency owner, I think that gives me the confidence to balance the shitty days where it's just like these budgets. How do we keep this going? How do we figure out like the money in this new world? Like it's definitely a changing world. And I think that's the most conversations I've been having with other owners, other producers, other people around the industry is just like the changes. But I do think we're in a unique spot because we're not new and it's not like I'm new to this business, but we are small, we're lean, we're expanding the company in this new era of it. And so like the rules are changing and so we're trying to figure it out and we're able to figure it out because we're small and we're lean and we scale as we need and we get into different avenues and we have a kick-ass graphics team that does a ton of work as well that kind of does some stuff and we're just again we're scrapping and we're doing it, but it's that balance. It's like now as an owner, that has been the biggest thing. It's like about trying to find those like positive things to just keep going, because it can be you know pretty brutal when you're just like the stress of just the deadlines, the money, summer vacations. I mean, holy crap, just managing that, and being
Totally.
me and I'm reaching out to you like, hey, I need help here. And then it changes the next week. I need help
Yep.
here. It's, and that's me vetting those people and this and that. And so that's where it's like, again, knowing where that bandwidth is and trying to find help that I think will help increase our efficiency across the board so that we can, again, it all better serves the client, better serves the staff here. So they're not working late because I was busy during the day and this and that. And it's just, again, it's just trying to keep the clients happy, and it's just been, but it has been a struggle. It's been a lot.
Yeah, I think that it's very, what you're saying is very similar to lots of agency owners in actually all parts of advertising services in general. Because I work with people in brand,
Right.
gaming. You're actually the first person I've spoken with that's in theatrical marketing. We've speaking mostly people in brand, so it's exciting to hear all these great movies and everything that you guys have worked on. And yeah, scaling it seems to be a tricky thing. Everyone wants to be able to keep their core people together, but it's also important to have like a deep bench. So when needs come quickly, you got people in your network that can kind of jump in there
Mm-hmm.
and take the reins. And it can be tricky because it's like everybody kind of needs those, the freelance pool at the same time, and it becomes a quick race to like getting
Yeah.
everybody put in the place where they need to be.
Yeah. You're kind of
So
constantly faced with like I'm in this position today. It's like, okay, do I pull the plug today on that freelancer who I love because we have enough bandwidth now with the internal crew, but they might be good for this other thing that I think might be coming in a week or two.
Yeah.
But if I let them go, then they're gone. And so again, it's just that constant, like there's just so many levels of the dials. And I think that that's stuff that every agency owner has to do. I think in the past, maybe there was, you know, back in the aughts when there, you know, and there was just more money and there was more ways to do maybe like the home entertainment balancing out theatrical. And like there was just a little bit more of the budget openness. And now with everything being so, I mean, even just dealing with budgets now is, you know, takes time and money and you're like, I don't have time for this. But it really is. And it's such a weird thing as we move into this new era of the new budgets and the new this and the new that. And we're trying to figure it out as agencies. It's also how do, you know, how do you do it? Is it freelancers? Is it everybody? But everybody's fighting for the same resources at that point. And then
is there a new way that you see any like goals or new ways you see doing things in the near future or directions you see yourself going?
I think it's super. I think I'm in a weird spot to answer that somewhat because it's like I don't have the experience as like let's say John Long at Buddha doing this forever, and like he could be like, this is how we've done things for so long, and then okay, things are shifting, so we're gonna think about this, and like he's in that company's at a place where they can really like forecast. You know, for us, like having made our last payment to BLTs literally the day of the strikes happening, it's like, okay, and so we basically own the company, or I own the company outright right into the strikes. It's like all those thoughts of like, okay, here we go, we're put on hold, and now we're at that point where we should have been a year ago.
Totally.
And so I don't know if I have, and I'm new. I haven't done this before. This is like I ran uni in-house, but that was kind of funny money. It's not it's like, yes, you have to meet budgets and you have to make sure that you're not costing the company, but that's a cost savings department versus a cost generating or a revenue generating. So it's a totally different mindset. And even at AV Squad, being in on the budgets and being at AV before, there was kind of a layer of finance departments and forecasting because we had this bigger bank account to ride on if we had a down month. And so all of these things. So I'm really learning, you know, again, like I said, part of it is I'm definitely not a risk taker. I mean, I am in a way, but I know my limit. It was like back in the day when I was snowboarding, moved to Mammoth, kind of quickly understood that my level of like, okay, I'm sponsored, but I'm not going to go where these other folks are going. I could see and it was because I knew I wasn't willing to take 100% risk that could end in complete failure, aka death.
Yeah.
and that's the same. Like it's a different world. Like I was able to say like this is a measured risk to take BLT, not private, but away and take it on my own because I knew it had been working because I'd been working it. And so I knew the players to do it. It wasn't it was like kind of it was like wading into the water versus jumping into the middle of the ocean as like a entrepreneur agency owner. So they do, you know, to answer your question moving forward, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of changes. I don't know what they are, but it's, you know, there's like Grandson had the whole thing where it's like, there's no OT. There's this, there's that. Agencies are making moves and making changes. And I think the smaller shops will need to make them before the bigger shops just because of cash flow, and the bigger shops, you know, have the engines that just kind of keep things going for a little bit longer. But I know that everybody's talking about it. And so it's how those things are kind of sorted out. It's like, you know, there's things that I'm talking about and it's like, you know, we'll see with different people, and it's like, we'll see what kind of happens on that. But it is a weird time.
Is there any technology that you've been using, any new sort of things that have been helpful or like collaborative things for teams in terms of working that you found good?
Well, I mean, I hate Teams, but we use it because it's part of our Microsoft package, but so it's free-ish. But yeah, I mean, we at BLT, when I first went back, the infrastructure technology wise was basically Stone Age. They had been kind of just keeping this thing going for a long time. And luckily, right before the pandemic, we had to buy a new server. So we had that already in the works. And then that allowed us to then, once the pandemic started to go, and then once we moved into our new office, we really hit the ground running with top of the line infrastructure, Teradici, all the production machines were TPN Gold, doing all the stuff that costs way too much money to work on these movies with the budgets that are so scrutinized, which I think is also another issue with the world we're in right now. It's like
Totally.
you pay so much to play, and how does that then pay you back when it's, there's just no budget to cover it. So, I think there's that, but I think that it really has made it amazing. Like I said, a lot of people are coming into the office, but at a certain point during the day, we can bounce home and like hop on a production machine and through Teradici. And, I know some people had it right out of the gate through COVID, and they're so, there's many more years into it. But for us, it's been game changing. And then just, constantly tasking, certain people of the same mindset on our staff that are real, like super tech and super like, if this isn't working, there's got to be something else. And so we recently switched from Evercast to another service called Looper. And that was huge. I mean, fraction of the cost, so much easier to use. Like it was a huge change for us. It was just like, okay, great. Now we can take that money for Evercast, and we weren't using it because it was for us personally, it was too much of a headache. It's like some of my editors are not super tech savvy. And so to them, it was just like, what's happening?
Totally.
And graphics was just like, wow, what are we talking about? Looper, everybody's up on it, super easy. That's been hugely helpful. Everything else is, the one thing that I think has been super helpful, it's not perfect, is just the auto transcript inside of Premiere, being able to pull an auto transcript from whatever show or movie, and then instead of having to have people not only transcribe it and then perfect it, it's like somebody can pull that and then quickly like, okay, go through it and watch and just correct it. And it sped up the transcription process a lot. And that was something that was always helpful. But then at AV Squad, when I was there, it was one of the things that I really was like, this is amazing, especially for me, who's, as a producer, I'm constantly looking to cobble the lines and figure out how we can tell that story that's needed, that isn't in the movie, that's not, or like what joke could cobble with this, and needing the line and this and that. So I think that's super helpful. And then, everything else is, pretty much the same. That's like, we're still reaching out for music, doing this and that. The custom houses doing all the custom work on music is, from my day editing, is such a different thing. And then even my like middle ground of producing was more like overlays and like sections and this and that, and the editor's kind of playing with stems. And now it's just like bonkers, and it's just like, as a producer, you have to like get the story going and get the music going even before. And so much of the times I feel like the music is found as you're working. It's like, as an editor, I would be like, I hate this cue now. Try something else for a while and be like, okay, I'm going to go back. No, actually this thing, and constantly looking and constantly trying to better it and better it and better it. And, on the other hand, I do think that it is great because like the custom houses and all the music houses can take something that you might have kind of thrown away and like really elevate it and make it something that you can really just go create a whole piece around this lyric that you were like, oh, I love this lyric, but the music just doesn't work. And nowadays,
Are there some go-to places that you like for that can kind of do that sort of thing these days?
I mean, we work with so many people, but like, we do and I'll probably forget somebody, but right now on a campaign we have Crystal Creative, on another we have Hit House, Ghostwriter, and I'm gonna forget who the name. I'll have to remember. They were great. And then on something else we had on the Bear we had Totem, and so
you're able to give these folks like basically a rough idea of what you're hearing, what you want, and then they can just expand it, orchestrate it, make it.
I think it kind of depends on who we're working with. It depends on the campaign. I mean, altogether, what's happening at that moment. Like for this newest thing, we just started like pulling song ideas. It was just like, let's do this one, and send them to two different spots. And Alloy tracks finally hit me. The A kept going to Alibi, but and
Dude,
then
I'm the king of senior moments, so no.
And I'm getting close to seniorness, so it's like, here we go. But and then Score is awesome. Jamie and Kristen Tolhurst are great, and so we use them as well. But yeah, so like on a campaign where we have to start early, because it's just like we know our deadlines are tight and we just have to pick a song, and we're just going to start cutting and using whatever version of the song. Like, let's say there's another trailerized version out there, but we want to do something different or take it a different direction, from more like action to warm, or from warm to action. We'll either go back to that same place that exists and do that, or if it is a fully new thing, we'll go out, say, here's the cue, do your thing. This is what we want to do. We want to kind of have it be similar to this, and big drums, and then. But then on others, like the Bear, we had already kind of roughed out a lot of the stuff. And so it was a bit this back and forth of like, oh, this is kind of the original song cut in, but can you then take it and just kind of make it different? And so they did that. Other campaigns, Ghostwriter on this crazy thing Hulu did with Baz Luhrmann's Australia, where they took it and made it into a 6-part miniseries. And it was kind of Baz's like, Baz's kind of just pet project that I think just was into. So it was like using his music and using this and using that. And so like being able to take some of the pieces and just create this whole score and feeling. And Brian did a great job on that, but that was like more collaborative, where it's like, or not more collaborative because it's all very collaborative, but it's like we had just like a piece here and a piece there, and it's like the rest we have to fill, and like how do we kind of then make it all smooth and flowy, and that's really the thing. It's like, how do we just make these things just feel effortless and like they just flow? And I think that's where for me, it was always scary as like a producer. It was another level of like, oh crap, not only do I gotta deal with like listening to cues, and I gotta like music direct this music house and then give notes and try it. For me, as like I said, I'm very music based. I mean, was my whole life as a younger person, going to shows and seeing music, but putting that into words and giving direction, that was a very scary thing. But it was that like, having better people around, like Aura's good to talk about music and she's going to give her notes, and then I'm going to learn these terms, and learning from Angel, who I grew up with at AV Squad, and kind of hearing him talk to his vendors and talking to the houses. It's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of starting to get that. And it was, again, just kind of learning from really good people. Matthew Tolhurst, like he was always like picking up on the words and the kind of how they categorize music and what things are and this and that. And that's, it's been an interesting new world of that for me personally, just because, like I said, as an editor, it was just like cues and that's it. And then like sometimes you would hire somebody to score something if they didn't want to pay for the song and do it not.
Totally. Well, I guess last question for you. Obviously, you do some snowboarding, and I will. Do you still snowboard?
If last year I did not go for the first time ever, and it's due to mostly the company being a new shop owner and not having the money to pay for this now. which I really, and I could do a whole podcast on how angry it makes me that it's become such an inaccessible sport at this point,
Totally.
as opposed to being able to like scrap some money together and then on the weekend drive up to Big Bear both days, back and forth both days, gas and this. It was all much more affordable but yeah, I still do. It's just, and I love it when I do. It's just really hard to find.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever happen to be in the Green Mountain State here, where I hail from now, and you want to put on your snowboard, come join me. I am not a good snowboarder. You'd probably make me look really bad out there, considering you sound like you had a decent career at it. But I can get down the hill usually without falling too much, and would happy to entertain you down here.
Part of the part of the fun now is like at the bottom of the mountain, take a couple runs, go have a beer. It's like it's what happens as you get older, and as my kids get older, I'm looking forward to them, whether they want to or not, but at least if they are in it. Like my oldest daughter, she does like doing it. My younger is like, just like my wife is like, meh. But yeah, I will happily come out there. The only time I've ever tried to ski on the East Coast was in Maine, where my wife is now and is from. I was going up with our good friend Colin in my mother-in-law's Volvo, and it started dumping, and we were going to go. I can't even remember where we were going to go, like maybe Sunday River, if that's the thing right there. But we were going to go, and the all-wheel steering and the anti-lock or the anti-slide went out. And so we were kind of in the middle. We were like an hour outside of Portland, and the car was just like swerving everywhere. So we just had to pull over. So truly, I've never skied anywhere east of Utah. And that's also a great one. We should meet in Utah because
perfect, right in the middle.
It is fantastic. So
cool. Yeah, man. Well, I sincerely mean it. Hope maybe we'll get to hit the mountain sometime.
I would love to. I went to Stowe in the summer though.
Yep, beautiful up there. Beautiful. All seasons. Yep. Yeah, that's maybe 45 minutes from me. So
nice.
But yeah, man, really appreciate the time and hearing some of your insights. And yeah, man, I'm excited to keep following the work you guys are doing. And yeah,
thank you for having me.
Rest of your week. Yeah, thanks so much, Drew.
This has been a pleasure, and always fun to talk about this crazy world we chose to get involved with. So
totally, yeah, would love to have you back sometime, man. So
yeah, exactly. A follow up of I'll be balder and older, and we'll see.
I will be too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
cool,
Justin.
Man. Well, have a good day. Appreciate it, man.